Here's a number that should bother you. Investors who hold onto losing stocks waiting to break even underperform the market by an average of several percentage points a year. And the loss has nothing to do with the stock. It's already happened. The money is already gone. What's happening now is a second loss, layered on top of the first, caused entirely by your unwillingness to accept the first one. This is the sunk cost fallacy, and in personal finance it doesn't show up as one bad decision. It shows up as a slow leak, 3 separate leaks actually, each one justified by something you already spent, money, time, or loyalty. None of them feel like mistakes while they're happening. That's what makes them expensive. You've probably heard of the sunk cost fallacy in the context of, say, finishing a bad movie because you already paid for the ticket. Cute example, mostly harmless. 2 hours of your life. Your portfolio doesn't work in 2-hour increments. It works in decades, and it works through compounding, which means a small, irrational decision made today doesn't cost you today's value. It costs you today's value plus everything that value would have become by the time you retire. The sunk cost fallacy in investing isn't a one-time tax. It's a recurring one, charged every year on money that's no longer even there to tax. I want you to picture a house with an unfinished addition. Years ago, someone, maybe you, knocked down a wall, poured a foundation, and started building a new room. Then the budget ran short, the contractor got flaky, or priorities changed. The room sits there, half-framed, exposed insulation, a tarp where a window should be. Every year you spend money maintaining that mess, patching the tarp, paying to heat a space with no insulation, telling yourself you'll finish it eventually because look how much you already put into it. A rational person, looking at that house for the first time, would say, tear it down or finish it properly, but stop bleeding money into a hole in the wall because of what's already inside it. Your portfolio has rooms like this. Today I'll show you 3 of them, and most people are paying to heat all 3 at once. Mistake 1. The losing position. You're waiting to break even. On this is the room with the tarp over the window, the position everyone recognizes once it's pointed out. Here's how it starts. You buy a stock at $80, it drops to $52. Now you have 2 choices. Sell it and lock in a loss, or hold it until it gets back to $80 so you can sell it even. That second option feels responsible. It isn't. The price you paid is a fact about the past. It has zero bearing on what that stock will do next. The market does not know your cost basis, does not care about your cost basis, and is not moving toward $80 because that's where you got in. A landmark study by behavioral economist Terence Odian, analyzing over 10,000 brokerage accounts, found that investors sell their winning positions about 1.7 times more often than their losing ones, even though, on average, the losers they kept went on to underperform the winners they sold by roughly 3.4 percentage points over the following year. This pattern is so consistent it has a name, the disposition effect. People dispose of winners and cling to losers, exactly backwards from what tax efficiency and expected returns would suggest. You think the problem is that the stock hasn't recovered yet. Actually, the problem is that you're using a number from the past, your purchase price, as the criteria for a decision about the future. 2 completely unrelated questions, and the sunk cost fallacy is what welds them together in your head. Let's put a name on this one too. Priya bought $30,000 of a single growth stock 3 years ago. It's down to $19,000. She tells people she's still holding because I believe in the long-term story. But when asked directly, she admits that if she didn't already own it, she wouldn't buy it today at $19,000. That sentence is the whole tell. If you wouldn't buy it today, holding it isn't an investment decision. It's an unwillingness to admit the first decision didn't work out. Here's the dollar version. That $11,000 loss already happened. It's sunk, gone, real, whether she sells or not. But by holding a position she wouldn't choose today instead of redeploying that $19,000 into something she actually believes in going forward, she's not protecting herself from a second loss. She's guaranteeing one, the opportunity cost of $19,000 sitting in an investment she has zero conviction in for however many years until she finally capitulates. Run that $19,000 forward at a market average 7% for 20 years versus a stagnant position, and the gap is well over $50,000. Not because the original loss got worse, but because the money that survived the original loss never got the chance to compound anywhere useful. The room with the tarp doesn't cost you the foundation you already poured. It costs you everything that foundation could have supported if you'd built somewhere else. Mistake 2. The advisor or strategy you stay with out of loyalty. This is the contractor you keep because you already paid the deposit. Here's the pattern. 12 years ago, you hired a financial advisor. At the time, your portfolio was $80,000, and the advisor's 1% fee was $800 a year. Genuinely reasonable for someone managing your investments, rebalancing, and talking you through 2020's chaos. 12 years of disciplined saving and market growth later, that portfolio is now $620,000. The fee is still 1%. It's now $6,200 a year. Same advisor, same service, same annual check-in calls when widened, but the fee has grown by a factor of nearly 8, while the actual work involved has not. Why don't people leave? Not because they think it's still a good deal mathematically. Most, if pressed, will admit it probably isn't anymore. They stay because of the relationship, because the advisor got them through a hard time, because switching feels like betraying someone who helped you, or like admitting 12 years of fee payments were a mistake. You think the loyalty is the value. Actually, the loyalty is the cost. It's the thing preventing you from making a decision based on what the relationship is worth now, rather than what it was worth then. Let's do the math the industry hopes you won't. A $620,000 portfolio growing at 7% annually over 25 years, with no fee drag, reaches roughly $3.37 million. With a 1% AUM fee compounding against it every single year, that same portfolio reaches closer to $2.66 million. The gap, about $710,000. $710,000. Not because the advisor did anything wrong in any individual year, but because a fee that felt proportionate at $80,000 became a structural drag at $620,000. And the only thing keeping it in place was the emotional residue of a relationship that started over a decade ago. The exit code plug. I went deep on exactly this kind of fee drag math, along with the tax mechanics of unwinding old positions and old advisor relationships without triggering an avoidable tax bill, in a digital book I put together called The Exit Code. 8 chapters, no filler, built from retirement research and SEC filings most people never read. One full chapter is specifically about transitioning out of legacy advisory relationships without the emotional or tax penalty feeling bigger than it actually is. Links in the description if you want the full framework. Mistake 3. The I built my wealth on this I can't sell it now position. This is the original blueprint, the one you keep building to even after the house has outgrown it, because you already paid the architect and the plans feel sacred. This mistake is the most counterintuitive of the 3 because it usually involves a position that made you money. A lot of money. Here's the setup. You worked at a company for 15 years, you got stock options, an employee stock purchase plan, RSS, and over time that single company's stock became 40% of your entire net worth. It went up. A lot. It's the reason you can retire early. You feel, understandably, a deep sense of identity wrapped up in those shares. I built my wealth on this company isn't just a financial statement. It's a story about your career. And that story is exactly why people refuse to trim the position, even when every fee-only financial planner on earth would tell them the same thing. Having 40% of your net worth in one company's stock is not a wealth-building strategy at this point. It's a concentration risk wearing a wealth-building costume. You think selling some of it means abandoning the company, and by extension, abandoning the years of work that got you here. Actually, the years of work already happened. They're sunk, in the good sense. Selling shares doesn't undo them. It just stops betting your future on the assumption that the next 15 years go exactly like the last 15. The data on concentration risk is blunt. Research on individual stock returns has found that the median stock historically underperforms 1-month treasury bills over its lifetime. The entire positive return of the stock market comes from a small percentage of stocks that perform exceptionally well, and there's no reliable way to know in advance whether your company is one of them or one of the majority that isn't. Jack, the person whose portfolio we're going to add up in a moment, has $250,000 of his $620,000 portfolio in his former employer's stock. It's up significantly from where he acquired it. He won't trim it because I know this company, and because selling feels like betting against the place that built his career. Here's the dollar reframe. If that single position underperforms a diversified portfolio by even 2% annually over the next 20 years, which for a single stock versus a diversified index is a conservative assumption, that's a difference of roughly $230,000 on $250,000. Just from concentration he could diversify away from tomorrow with a few clicks and a manageable tax bill. The blueprint got him here. It is not obligated to get him the rest of the way. Case study. Synthesis. Jack. All 3 rooms at once. Jack is 54. $620,000 portfolio built over 22 years of consistent saving. Genuinely impressive. And right now he's running all three sunk cost mistakes simultaneously, each one individually defensible, each one a room with the lights on and nobody living in it. He's holding a $19,000 position. Yes, the same numbers as Priya's. Turns out this is common. Down from $30,000, waiting to get back to even before he'll consider selling. He's paying his advisor of 12 years a 1% fee on the full $620,000, about $6,200 this year, rising every year the portfolio grows. And $250,000 of his portfolio sits in former employer stock he won't trim, for reasons that are entirely emotional and entirely understandable. Let's add it up over the next 20 years at consistent 7% market growth as a baseline. The losing position, redeployed instead of held flat, roughly plus $50,000 in recovered opportunity cost. The advisor fee, if renegotiated or moved to a flat fee or self-directed model, roughly plus $710,000 in compounding that currently goes to fees instead of Jack. The concentration position diversified into a portfolio matching market average returns instead of single stock risk, roughly plus $230,000 in expected value, even using conservative assumptions. Combined, just under $1 million in additional wealth over 20 years. Not from picking better investments, not from saving more, not from taking on more risk. From stopping three things he's currently doing because of money, time, and identity he already spent. Jack isn't behind. He's just renovating 3 rooms he should be tearing down. 3 things to do this week. First, the would I buy it today audit. Every individual position in your portfolio, not your index funds, your individual stock picks, and ask one question. If I had cash instead of this position right now, would I buy this at today's price? Today. If the answer is no, the only thing keeping you in it is the price you originally paid, which is information the market doesn't have and doesn't care about. Write down every position that fails this test. That's your list. Second, the fee origin check. Find out when your current fee structure was set up and what your portfolio was worth at the time. If your portfolio has grown significantly since then and your fee is still a flat percentage, calculate, in dollars, not percent, what that fee costs you this year versus what it cost the year you signed up. If the gap is in the thousands, that's not loyalty anymore. That's a structural cost that happens to come with a relationship attached. Third, the concentration test. Add up any position, single stock, company stock, anything, that represents more than 10 to 15% of your total portfolio. If anything clears that line, ask yourself honestly, is this a position I'd choose to build from scratch today at this size? Or is it a position that became this size because of where I worked or what I happened to buy years ago? Size that happened to you isn't the same as a strategy you'd choose. None of these require selling everything tomorrow. They just require seeing the rooms clearly. Quick recap of the numbers because they're worth holding on to. Investors hold their losers while selling their winners, and the losers they keep underperform by over 3% a year on average. A fee that felt like nothing at $80,000 can cost over $700,000 by the time your portfolio is worth 10 times that. And a concentrated position you built your wealth on can quietly cost you $250,000 in the next 20 years just by staying the size it happens to be. None of these are about the past being wrong. The past already happened. It's sunk. In the financial sense and in the peaceful sense. You don't owe it any more of your future. The house doesn't need you to finish the addition. It needs you to stop heating a room nobody's standing in.